So before we get started, Nick, I don't know if you have any opening comments, anything you want to say to the group?
Well, I'd like to thank them for joining us, and also just let them know that hopefully some of the things that we talk about today will be applicable and be useful, although I know that each SIG has very unique needs, so that some of the things we talk about might not be down their alley, but hopefully some of it will be, and it will be useful.
That's a really good point. I mean, you know, this webinar is about training, but we're not trying to say there's one right way to do this. What we really want to do is give you guys some ideas about how to be a better SIG leader and get a little bit more organized. So, okay, so with that, Nick, can you tell us why you joined TUG to begin with?
Let me bring up my first slide. On the first slide, you'll see a picture of an island. The company that I work at is a small company. I'm an IT staff of one. So very simply, I joined TUG just to tap into a support network so that when I had questions, I could go to people who had answers and could give me answers real quickly when I couldn't get answers from Info real quickly. So in a nutshell, it's just I needed a place to get knowledge, and TUG and specifically the SWA SHIMS community was the place to be. So that was really the big motivation.
Great. Why did you become a SIG leader?
You know what? I'm a very visual person, so I want to throw up a picture to kind of answer this question. This is a picture of the past SIG leader at SHIMS after he announced that he was stepping down, and he announced that he was looking for a replacement. I say this in jest, but I would imagine that many of the SIGs might struggle to get either a leader of a SIG or to get people to act on the board of a SIG, because I think it's generally, hey, listen, it's a non-paying job, it's perceived as a heck of a lot of work. The reason why I became a SIG leader is that for 7 years I just tapped into this great knowledge base of 20 to 25 people who were instrumental in me being successful and helping my organization be successful. So I guess it sounds noble, but it's really the reason why I did it is someone asked me to do it that I really respected, and I felt like you know, it was my time to actually take over the role, because this is a beneficial group and I've benefited greatly, so hopefully I can help other people benefit from it.
Okay. Hey, I'm going to interrupt for a little bit of housekeeping here. I see a comment from Daryl saying he doesn't see anything on the screen. And Daryl, I don't know if you still don't. I'm seeing that when you dialed into the meeting, you didn't enter your PIN number. And so that might be why you're not seeing the screen. So you might want to jump off the meeting and come back in and make sure you enter that PIN number that you'll see as soon as you join the online meeting. And if anybody else can't see the meeting, please raise your hand or enter a question in the question tab. And in the meantime, we'll go ahead and carry on. So Nick, let's talk a little bit about the SHIMS board. How many people are on the SHIMS board that you have, and why have a board at all?
Yeah, we have 14 members on the SHIMS board, and they run the gamut. It's really across the country, from the West Coast to the Midwest to the Southwest, and members all along the Eastern Seaboard and in the central part of the country. The 14 members are from all different industries, really. We have plumbing, heating, electrical, HVAC, pipes, valves, and fittings. So it's a real good cross-section of the 150 people that organizations that still use SHIMS. And we lose people every year because they move off of SHIMS, or they, for whatever reason, they can't stay on the board. And then it seems like every time we lose one, we gain two. So it's actually grown over the years to a group of 14. The second question, Gary, I think that either you asked or you're going to ask is why have a board? And that's the key one. And I put up on the slide power of collaboration. The first board meeting that I attended 7 years ago, the leader was talking or asking questions, and I kept thinking to myself, yeah, you know what, I know the answer to that. This is exactly the way we should do it. But I wouldn't say anything. I was new, and I would listen to people from around the country, from using the software differently in different industries, and it dawned on me very quickly that, number one, I didn't know nearly as much as I I thought, and number two, that there were people out there with just a lot more knowledge, experience at doing things shims than I was, and so this collaboration is really, I think, the critical thing to the shim SIG, and I think it's one of the cornerstones of why we're successful is that I really feel that as a board we're tapped into pretty much most of the 150 members because we have such a good cross-section, and so when we're trying to make decisions on, let's say, content for the SIG meeting or what we want to do at the next TUG, we're almost hitting the mark or hitting the mark, sometimes right on the money, because we have this board and because the board's very actively involved in this collaboration.
Okay. So I think that a lot of our SIG leaders struggle with the concept of a board, or at least, how do I go about accumulating a board, if you will. How do you get new board members to join?
Well, once again, I guess I'm such a visual person. I'd like to show a picture. This is the latest board member just before he signed on board with the SHIMS community. So, and obviously it's in jest, but I just ask, and then ask again, because I think I guess you wear people down. But I know that I'd like as many people on that board as possible, and that everyone brings something to gain for the group. And so at each meeting, whether it be at TUG, whether it be at Inforum, or whether it be one of our own SIG meetings that we have exclusive of any other organization, I'm constantly asking new people if they're interested in getting on board or on the board. And it's amazing that people have just taken to it. And I think one of the reasons is that at the SIG we all have a dinner, and it seems like everyone in our SIG kind of goes to dinner together. And on many occasions we've had probably the whole group go out to dinner. And I think at a dinner you get this great collaboration. We're talking about things shims, talking about how we're doing it, and people are realizing, wow, this is going to be really beneficial when I bring this back. And the moment that happens, and then you say, would you like to join the board, I think that person realizes, wow, you know what, this is a group that this networking really is beneficial. So yeah, I want to do this because it's going to really benefit me, and then again, it also benefits the board and the SIG as a whole. So I guess one recommendation would be, if you can get a dinner together, a group of people that you want to try to start a board with or enhance your board, make it larger, going out to dinner as a group after the SIG or after something at TUG is probably has been beneficial for me of getting new members.
When you ask the SIG, when you ask somebody to join the board next, are you asking them one at a time? Or are you emails? What's your approach?
Yeah, you know what? It's usually individual, but I've asked people in a group, and it's because we don't have a specific number of board members that we have to have. It's not written into our bylaws. So I've asked people individually, asked people even within a group, because if there are 3 people and they all have a common theme, they've come to conferences together, I'd like all 3 of them to join in. In fact, many times it has been that. I've asked someone that I know, we're in the presence of 2 other people at the meal, and they, tell me about it. And then all of a sudden I've had, 3 people sign up for the board at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So when you go about planning your SIG meetings, tell us about that. How do you do that?
Yeah, SIG meeting is actually the lion's share of my work is organizing and get ready for the SIG meeting. And I break it up into 5 major points, so 5 emails really is what it is. The first 4 on this slide I do 2 months before the SIG meeting, and then the last one, call for mods, I do that 4 weeks before the SIG meeting. So that's the timeline that works well for me. So the first one, the what you want to see at the next SIG email, goes to our whole organization. So it goes out to about 125 to 150 emails. And essentially what I do is I don't say, hey, listen, what would you like to see at the next SIG meeting that would bring you to the TUG meeting, we'll say, for example. I throw out an agenda of, let's say 7 to 10 things that we're thinking about as a board that we're going to have at the next SIG meeting and at the next TUG meeting. And I say, what do you think of this, and is there anything that you would like to change or add to the SIG meeting to make it beneficial for you? And I've noticed that if you just send out an email and say, hey, look, tell me what you'd like to see, you won't get a response. But if you send out something that this is what we're thinking about, people are much more willing and want to actually, give you their input, because they're looking at something and saying, I, firmly disagree with this, or, yeah, this is a great idea, but can we look at it from this angle? And so what we're going to do is take all of the responses and then integrate that into our next board meeting. So when we sit down and try to define the content of what's going to be in the SIG, we're using, live examples of what people responded that aren't on the board but are in the SHIMS community. Actually, we've used email, and then we've also used the constant contact survey tool as well to do this #1 bullet point. The second thing we do is this SME email, and I'm just using the acronym there, subject matter expert. Really what it means is I email 4 really important people that I really hope come to the meeting. Their names are Ed, Jim, Gary, and Grant. And if I can get 2 of those 4, I know I have 2 subject matter experts that are going to add great content to the meeting, because they're well respected, everyone knows them, and everyone really wants to pick their brain or find out what they're doing. If I get all 4, I know I have fantastic content for the SIG meeting. If I get 1, then I know that it's not going to be as the SIG meeting won't be as well received as if we had more than 1. And really what I'm asking those technical people, are you coming to the meeting, and you know what, I'd like you to get involved in the meeting this way. This is the hot topic. Can you do some training for us in this particular area, or can you introduce that brand new application that you've developed to us at this particular time? And so really what I'm doing, I'm just building content for the meeting and making sure that I get the key people there that are going to be the big draws of why someone would want to come to the meeting. And then the third thing I do is the Big Brother email, I call it, and that's an email to Infor, into our support mechanism through Infor, whether it be Kelly Squazzaro or whether it be someone else. And what I'm asking for there is, can I have technical people from Infor come to the meeting so that they can be content presenters at the SIG meeting as well? And in our community, there's really one person that I definitely have to have there, because he's the person that lives, breathes AIX, and is just such a valuable resource to everyone who's going to be at the meeting. In that email too, it might be another email asking, hey, listen, can you also make a presentation or not even a presentation, but just be there to answer questions about this hot topic that's coming down in the SHIMS community. We'd like to pick your brain on it, or we'd like to beat you up on it and get you to change your mind on how you're viewing things. So that Big Brother emails is email to Infor, inviting the resources that I need for the SIG. The third-party vendor email I actually don't do. It's Gary, you take care of it for us, but it's which third-party vendors that work within the SHIMS community are going to be at the TUG meeting or at our own meeting, and we would like to invite them to present at the SIG meeting their application, their third-party solution. And then the last email is a call for mods email. I know from talking with people in other SIGs, mods are not as important or as readily available as they are in the SHIMS community, but we're a sunsetted product, so mods are critical, mission critical, really. And so what I do is I ask the community, the 125 to 150 users, hey, listen, we would like people to actually display their mods live at the SIG meeting and talk about, #1, why they did it, #2, is it being successful, and #3, how did they implement it? And I can always count on between 5 and 7 users that I will consider kind of our power users to say, yeah, you know what, I've worked on 3 different changes to shims. They're going to be really beneficial. They've been beneficial for us, and I'd love to display them to the community so that they know they're available and where they can get them, and if they need it modified, where they would go. And so that takes place about 4 weeks before the SIG meeting itself.
Very good. How does the SWA board conduct its meetings?
You know what? Our board meetings, we probably have, I would say, between 7 to 8 meetings a year. And probably 4 of them revolve around setting up the content for the SIG meeting, whether it be at TUG or whether it be at a different venue. And then the other, 3 to 4 are just general meetings of there's something that's going to impact us that we need to talk about and make some decisions on, whether it be a change in Infor policy or what have you. And it's always done as a 1-hour conference call / WebEx. And so we, set up a WebEx. We always, it's always really held to 1 hour. On occasions it does go over, and we've gone to 1 hour and 15 minutes. But it's really kind of short and sweet. Of the 14 people, we usually at a conference call get anywhere between 8 to 10 people that attend. There's always a few that can't, just for whatever reasons. I try to coordinate it to get it as best schedule as possible for the entire group. But that's how it's done. And then obviously we'll meet at a SIG meeting to discuss things in person, face to face. But it's really these 8 conference call / WebExes that we do throughout the year.
Nick, I don't think we addressed it. We're kind of throwing SWA around the screen here. So somebody asked, what does SWA mean?
Yeah, you know what, Gary? It's funny. I throw it around too much either, and I've forgotten what.
Shims Wholesaler.
Shims user. Yeah, Shims Wholesaler Association.
It is, and it actually is a predecessor to TUG because Shims as a user group was organized before the Shims product was ever acquired by Nextrend. So they kept the TUG actually drafted its organizational aspects from the original SWA organization. And nowadays SWA is just a SIG within TUG. So, sorry, Nick, I didn't mean to throw that at you.
No, that's quite all right.
How do you communicate with your members? Oh, did we miss that one?
Yeah, well, it's really what I just explained, though. We communicate with that conference call 8 a year, and then obviously we have a distribution list and we email each other throughout the year. But as far as formal meetings, yeah, it's just the 8 conference call / WebExes.
Okay. And so, leading into the next question, what is your role during the SIG meeting?
Once again, being a visual person, I'd like to show you a picture of that Karen Brown took of me last August at the latest Boston meeting. Hopefully everyone's laughing at that. I actually don't look like Dean Martin. I always wondered if he and the rest of the Rat Pack were drinking scotch, but anyways, this picture though is comical, but it's also really true to form. My viewpoint of my role is that I'm the MC, I'm the Master of Ceremonies. I really don't want to provide a lot of content myself, and the reason being is that I'm really not a subject matter expert with shims. I know it pretty well, and there's certain aspects of it that I could get up and be beneficial to our group, but really I'm the Master of Ceremonies that's trying to pull all the subject matter experts together and coordinate a meeting that is really beneficial. And so I'm the person who kicks off the meeting, the person who lets the groundwork be laid for how the meeting's going to be run, and then I'm the person who lets people know that it's time for a break and we're going to be meeting back in 15 minutes, and then the business intelligence tool leaders are going to be in to talk about the latest changes. And so I'm definitely, I view myself as just a master of ceremonies, not a person who's going to be, up in front of the meeting just, talking quite a bit, just because I think if I did that, the meeting certainly wouldn't be successful.
Not to mention, it's enough work being an MC, much less having to plan for all of the presentations. So,
yeah.
Talk about Infor a little bit. How do you involve Infor in your meeting? What's their role?
You know what? We think, and this is not just me, but I think it's the whole board and probably everyone at in the SHIMS SIG. We view Infor as almost like a third-party vendor, and so we invite them, like we would invite a business intelligence tool, a document management tool provider to come to our meeting. We take the same approach to Infor, and I think it's easy for us to take this approach, and the reason why we do take this approach is that we're a sunsetted product, and so Infor really doesn't do any really development on the software. So we definitely take this attitude, hey, listen, we're going to invite you, and you're going to kind of talk about what we would like you to talk about and kind of work around our schedule. And we do want resources from you so that hopefully we can get, the technical AIX expert to come in and do this section. And then we're having a problem with the changes in the way you support us, and so we would like someone high up in the organization to come in and talk about why you've taken away this particular product or service where we used to have it. But we definitely take the approach that, you know what, this is our meeting, and you're a resource to help us make the meeting go well and to give us information when we need it. But we certainly don't look to them to do anything other than just be a resource within the meeting, I guess is the best way to put it.
Okay, very good. So take us through the agenda for a typical SIG meeting.
So this is what works for us, and I think please take it with a grain of salt, because if it's not going to work for your SIG, I completely understand, because the needs could be completely different. But the last SIG meeting that we had, this was the layout of the agenda. So we started at 8 o'clock, did an SWA update. So essentially this is a SHIMS update. What are the biggest pressing issues that are happening to our community, and let's talk about it. And at the last meeting, this is when I invited the representative from Infor, because they were actually taking away a tremendous benefit. They were taking away some mod money that we've had for for many, many years. And it was I think it was really going to change the way Infor supports us and the way we view Infor. So it's a very important thing. So during that update, I wanted them to have 15 minutes for them to kind of state their case of why they're doing this, and for us to have an opportunity to ask questions of why they're doing it and what does this mean in the future. And then we did a TUG update, and luckily we have Lee Goldman is a member of the SWA. He's also on the board of TUG, and so he gives us an update of what's happening at TUG and how that affects all of us. And then starts this mod show and tell, and this is when our users get up, bring up their PC, connect, and actually start demonstrating all of the modifications that they've done to the system that have helped improve their use of the software in their organizations. And this is it's definitely the highlight of the entire meeting. So that takes us to 10:30, and then the next section is where we have the technical experts come in and actually do presentations on what they have that's new, that's going to help SHIMS run better. And then just before lunch, we have the sponsors, the third-party vendors, come in and just do a quick introduction of who they are and why we want to come back after lunch to see what they have and why it's going to be beneficial for us to go to the afternoon meetings that start at 1:30. So have lunch, come back at 1:30, and then because we had so many vendors there, we broke up into two groups. So you see Loft 1 and Studio 1. So on the left-hand side, this focuses a business intelligence tool. I'm a huge advocate that that you don't have someone from the third-party vendor get up and do the presentation when you have a better resource. And the better resource would be one of the people within the organization that's already implemented the solution. And so for Focus, we actually implemented it. And so I would get up and show Focus from my PVD supplies perspective. People could ask me questions about how was the deployment. And it's interesting because in this case, Focus went extremely well, but many times when we've had a member do the presentation with the third party in the room, you'll see the discrepancies of how the salesperson tells you, yeah, it's 2 months to deploy, it's very simple, we've already solved that. And when you talk to the person who's on the other end of the spectrum, who's the person who's trying to deploy it within their organization, sometimes you almost get to the antithesis of that of, yeah, it was a struggle and we really didn't make it in the time period that we thought we would. So when possible, we always have a member of the SIG lead that presentation with the third party in the room to help out whenever needed. Then we take an afternoon break, and then in the afternoon from 3:15 we have roundtables. And a roundtable is an open discussion led by one of the people within the SIG on new technology, new applications, new theories within the industry. And it's really just a mind meld of 10 to 12 people talking about how they're deploying mobile devices, which devices are working better than others. And so it is truly just a roundtable of discussion, if you will. And that usually takes us right to the afternoon, about 4:15, 4:30.
Okay. And Nick, there's a couple of questions here we may have already dealt with, but they're on my list here. So one of them is, what are the most well-received sessions at the SWA SIG meetings?
Yeah, it's a wonderful question, and actually it's in a slide or two, but I'll talk about it right now because the question came up. We always debrief after the session, after the SIG meeting, and find out from the people that were there, and we usually have 30 people at a SIG. Hey, listen, what worked for you? What was the most beneficial? And on the other end of the spectrum, what did you consider the least? And every single year, the mod show and tell, when your colleague, your person who sits in Cleveland, not in Boston, and does your job, gets up and presents how they solved the particular problem within shims, how they made their shims make them money. In other words, that is always the most well received. And then really, I guess me kind of gloating, I guess, but we've never really had anyone say, hey, listen, that was a complete waste of time. They can, I've heard people say, yeah, you know what, that's a tool I would never use, really didn't need to go to that session, but really never had anyone say, hey, listen, you know what, that just wasn't a utter waste of my time. We've never really had that, which is a good thing.
Okay. Do you have the NAPCG agenda up too?
Yeah. So okay. On my next slide, Carla Picard has been very nice to send me her agenda because I know my agenda was going to work for some people but be completely not right for other people. So this slide is showing Carla's agenda, which, if you'll notice, starts at a different time. But I think the key here is that, you know what, there are people assigned, and it's extremely well organized. And I guess what I'd like to do is turn it over to Carla, if she doesn't mind, to talk a little bit about it.
Hopefully not. Carla, I unmuted you, so you should be able to talk.
Great. Could you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Hi, everybody. I can't actually take credit for this agenda because I didn't put it together. Don McKellar put it together. NAPCG is also a board-based led SIG, and that, again, is sort of same as what Nick was talking about, is it's a bit of a historical thing in that we had our own user group before we joined into TUG, and we've just kept our board in place. The nice thing about that is we do share the responsibilities, and so Don McKellar was the one who actually put this agenda together with the help of the rest of the board. And so we have decided that we're going to have a 4-hour meeting in October, and we've basically broken that down into, an initial welcome. We, introduce the group to any new people that are in the room and talk about TUG and what what the purpose of TUG is and what the difference is between TUG and NAPCG. We also arrange for senior management to come into our meeting. We do keep in close contact with Stacy Guccione, who is our product manager, and once we've got our schedule together, we send that to Stacy and just make sure that they're aware of when we do expect them to be in the room. We are somewhat flexible. If something happens and Andy gets caught in another meeting and it takes a little longer, we might flip the schedule around a little bit just to accommodate. So we do try to be flexible from that perspective. Then we spend some time, looking a little bit at things that are important to the A+ customers. ION is extremely important to us, and also the A+ roadmap. And then we talk about our enhancements. We do a voting process, so we talk about the voting, and then we talk about some of the enhancements that have actually made it into the base product. In a way, we're kind of patting ourselves on the back to some degree, because we've been able to get a lot of really good functionality into base A+ over the years through our enhancement process. And we also talk about co-development projects. We do have some going on within the A+ user community, where multiple companies have gotten together to pay for an enhancement that Infor has done, and they put them into the base product. So we talk about those because sometimes people are interested and want to jump on board and get together. So any new proposals are also tabled at that time. And then at the end, we always talk about the conference a little bit. Especially for new people, they don't really know what sessions to go to. I mean, some of them are dead obvious, but there's a lot of sessions that they might not understand exactly what the benefit to them would be. So we spend a little bit of time talking about which sessions they might want to pick up on and get to. So that's pretty much our agenda. It works pretty well. We don't change it a heck of a lot. We might move times around, like I said, and people around, but pretty much this is the type of agenda that we have for every meeting. Okay?
And Carla, I think you've done vendor presentations in the past too, haven't you?
Yeah, we actually have allowed that as well. Yeah, we actually did something, and we still do that now. We actually do a session in the last time slot at the conference for the A+ people who are still hanging around to get together and talk about whatever they want to talk about. You walk around that conference and you absorb so much information and you do so much networking, and it's nice to just have that session at the end to sort of recap everything and kind of talk with everybody again and just get an opportunity to get some feedback on the conference itself. What did they like? What did they not like? So we can also pass that feedback onto the conference planning committee and Gary and Karen. So what we did was we asked vendors to come to our SIG meeting and gave them 5 minutes to do just a brief presentation, and then we asked them to pitch in and get us a little prize for our last session. So we offer the prize in the last session, so it gives people a carrot to come and show up for that last session that we do. Okay. So that's kind of how we do that. Any other questions, Gary?
I don't see any, no. Okay. Thank you very much, Carla.
You're welcome.
There was one question that came up for Nick while Carla was talking, and the question is, for the mod show and tell, do you have the members submit a presentation request ahead of time to keep it organized?
Yeah. Hey, Carla, thank you too, as well. Do we? Yeah. You know what? So the way we did it, or the way I do it, is I send out a request for mods, and then people will send back their list of mods in a brief description. And then I just don't want two people talking about pretty much the same mod at the same time. And every once in a while, two people will have pretty much the same modification on there, and so I'll just email the first person and say, yeah, and then the second person just let them know, hey, Sue has that covered, but thanks. Does that answer the question, Gary?
I think it does. Yeah, I think the point is, yeah, you do try to get it organized ahead of time so that people aren't just showing up and saying, yeah, I got a mod. And
Oh, yeah. I should take that back. So I generate a list of all the people and a list of their mods with a brief description, and I just hand that out, paper copy, just so that, because what happens is, there's one couple people that are just so highly modded that it's hard to even keep track of them because they go through, 7 mods in a matter of 3 or 4 minutes.
mm-hmm.
And then people get a little bit confused, but if they have it written down on a piece of paper, it's just very easy for them to say, yeah, you know what, that's the one I want. I better call Ed, the programmer, and ask him about that one.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So here's another question, Nick, and it's not from a member, but we may have dealt with it already, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Why do you advocate SIG members leading third-party provider presentations?
Why do I advocate it? For our group, people find it more beneficial because, and I'll give you an example. Our past president's a super bright guy named Jamie Hudsemple, and he deployed document management. And I went to a presentation by the company that's trying to sell the document management. Then I went to a presentation by Jamie, and there was such a disparity between what was said by the party salesperson and what Jamie's presentation on how he deployed it, and the timeline was different, and what worked and what didn't work was different. And when I saw that, I'm like, geez, you know what? Maybe the next time if someone's deployed something, we should have them do it, show it. And I guess the other answer to this question is, when we did that, the person could get on their system and show it. Like I can get on the system and I demoed Focus, the business intelligence tool that I use, live. And it seems like every time we've asked a third party to come in, they don't demo it live. They don't go onto their system and have a nice, safe, what do they call it, sandbox environment to demo. They talk about it, show some slides of it, but it's not the real system. And when you show the real solution, I think it's just so much more impactful.
And that's a really good point. There's another point that I would make. It's kind of off center a little bit, but it's a great way to get other people involved. Somebody that might not be on your board, if you want to give them an opportunity to kind of get involved, this is a great way to approach them, because if they've got an app that's running successfully, a lot of times they've got a comfort level with that, and so it's an easy way to transition them into participating with the group.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's get on to a really important topic, and that is, what are some of the ways that you have started your SIG meeting?
Yes, I guess let me preface this by saying, because I have a long training background, I firmly believe that when you're in a training scenario or a meeting scenario, that people that don't know you will make a decision inside of 30 seconds on, hey, listen, am I going to give you 100% of my attention, or am I going to give you 50% of my attention, or am I just going to answer emails on my iPhone? And so starting the meeting is a real critical thing, and if you do it well, it's just kind of a great segue into the rest of the day. So at the Boston meeting, we had some people coming from Washington State, so they're coming clear across the country to Boston to a SIG meeting. And I knew that I was coming the closest because I live about 20 minutes north of Boston. So I decided to start the meeting with a Big Traveler, Wimpy Traveler Awards. And so the person who came the furthest, and I just did it as a show of hands, how many people have come from over 500 miles away, how many people have come from 1,000 miles, and obviously the last hand up was the person who had come all the way from Washington State. And they won a prize of a storage USB stick, and everyone claps and kind of exciting thing. And then I did the Wimpy Traveler Award, which was the person who's the closest, who's come to the meeting, and they're going to win a brand new Corvette. And I put up a little slide of a Corvette, and knowing full well that most of the people knew that I was from 20 minutes north. Well, it was interesting because there was someone at the meeting who was from 17 miles west of the city, and so everyone was very excited that I didn't win this fictitious Corvette, but but someone else did. And it was a great way to just to kind of get people, number one, smiling, number two, laughing, and number three, getting ready for, you know, a power-packed day of information.
If I
So I guess
remember right, that was a Matchbox Corvette, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was. And I really wanted it too. So that's one way of doing it. The other suggestion that I would make too is to start off the meeting by taking the onus off of you and putting it on the attendees. And the easiest way to do that is to just ask people to do something. At the very beginning of the meeting, could you do me a favor? I'd like you to take a piece of paper. Could you pull it out of the notebook? And I'd like you to take 2 minutes and write down the biggest, most important project that you've completed this year. And give me just a 1- or 2-line description of what that project is and how successful it was. And you'll be amazed that people will be like, oh, okay, you know, it's kinesthetic. They get to write, they get to move, and they get involved, and they'll write it down. And then when you do general introductions, a person is a little bit more comfortable because you're going to have them introduce themselves, their organization, and then to give a brief description on what was the most successful project they had this year. And they're comfortable because they just wrote it down. It's right on their mind. They don't have to think about it. They had 2 minutes to write it down and think about it. And that's another great way to actually just kick off the meeting. And plus, it makes it a little bit easier for you because you're asking them to do some work, not you to do the work. Another alternative would be to do partner introductions, where you just have people group up in teams of 2 and say, what I'd like you to do is find out the person's name, where they're from, the organization, and what's the most important thing they want to learn from this SIG meeting. And so you give people 2 or 3 minutes to sit down and discuss and share their name, their organization, and what they really want to get out of the meeting. And then you could actually have the partner introduce the other partner. And it just creates a really nifty scenario where just people are, you know, laughing and making all sorts of faux pas or mistakes on, oh, I'm sorry, your name's Peggy. I thought it was Pamela. But it's just a way to kind of lighten the tension in the room in a really easy way to do it. And there are really thousands of ways of doing it, but those are just the 3 that I feel most comfortable with, I guess. And then I would definitely take the time to go over the agenda in detail. So this is, the day is going to start at 8 o'clock, and this is what we're going to do from 8 to 9:30. At 10:30, we're going to be taking a break. It's going to be for 15 minutes. And the reason why you're doing this is that the people really need to know the layout of the day because they have a lot of other pressing things that they have to get done, and they're nervous about that because they get users back at the office that are crying out for help or for services or what have you. And by knowing the lay of the land of the agenda, they're going to know, okay, you know what, at 10:30, that's when I can call Fred back and let him know why his VPN's not working. Doesn't have to worry about when they're going to have time to do that or leave the room early. It just lets them know the day. It doesn't plan their day, I guess. And so I would spend a good amount of time, 5 minutes on just drilling through that agenda on what it's gonna look like. And then some of the simple things. There will be people rushing into that room at the last minute because they're running a little bit late. They get caught in traffic. They get caught at the airport, and letting them know just where the restrooms are can be really important. So just getting people comfortable with their environment, with the agenda, is an important thing to do.
And I guess size of the meeting is important, and Greg Chun asked the question, how many people normally attend an SWA SIG meeting, because that does have an impact on what you can do with the warm-up.
Yeah, it does.
So what group size does encompass?
It's funny, Gary, we always get between 20, 25, and 30, and it's almost like clockwork. And then when we've had a couple meetings where we've gotten 50, but they've been just our SIG alone. Not at a TUG, but at a TUG SIG meeting, yeah, we get between 25 and 30.
What would you do differently, Nick, if you had 50 or 100 people in the room?
Well, yeah, that's a great question, Greg. You know what? I'd struggle with doing introductions just because there's so many people. Can you invest that amount of time in doing it? However, it is valuable to do. So writing down writing down the big success project, or writing down what you must get out of this meeting for this meeting to be successful, is a worthwhile thing for 50 people to do, because it only takes 2 or 3 minutes to do that. Then what I would probably do is say, all right, I'd like you to turn to your left, turn to your right, and I want you to give that piece of paper to the person next to you so that they can learn a little bit about you, and then give them another 3 to 5 minutes for the person to their left and right to read the piece of paper and find out what's the thing they got to leave that SIG meeting knowing. And what invariably happens then is you get people into congruity. So Sam is meeting Sue because he's reading Sue's must learn at the SIG meeting paper, and all of a sudden, oh, Sue, you're from Toledo. That's fantastic. You know what? I have a friend in Toledo, and you're getting people who are now all of a sudden building a relationship, and that's a great thing to happen before the SIG actually happens, and it all can be done inside of 10 minutes. I guess that would be my recommendation.
Perfect. Thank you, Nick. So that's the end of the questions that I have, so the official end of the interview, I guess. I don't know if you have any closing comments, Nick, and then I also might say that if anybody has a question, now would be the time. Just raise your hand. I can unmute you or type something into the question bank, and we'll deal with that, and then we'll wrap this thing up.
Yeah, I guess as a closing, just thank you very much to all of you for taking the time to spend 45 minutes with this, and to wish you the best of luck at your SIG meeting, and I hope it's extremely valuable for your members and an enjoyable one. I guess also too, if anyone wanted to email me with any recommendations for me or any questions for me, please don't hesitate to do so. I don't have my email address up there, but it's nvalonis@pbdsupply.com. And good luck, and I look forward to seeing you in LA.
Thank you, Nick. And yeah, I just want to repeat too that we're not trying to let you guys. We're not trying to impart a specific way of doing things. I hope that bringing Nick into this session today has shown you that there's a number of different ways that you can approach a SIG meeting, get organized for a SIG meeting, and whatever way works best for you. Sometimes the politics are not the same. Sometimes the group size isn't the same, but hopefully we've shown you some creative ideas for how to help you get your SIG organized. So to all of our SIG leaders and board members who are on the call today, thank you very much. Your time is valuable. We really appreciate it. And we hope that you can join us in Florida and look forward to seeing you down there. So thanks, everyone. Have a great day.